For like a better part of the last decade, whenever we talk about AI entering the workplace, we really only ever ask one single question.
Yeah, just one.
Right. You hear it everywhere. Every industry, every conference you go to, it's always, which jobs will AI replace?
Exactly. It's the absolute obsession of our time.
It really is. But today, we're going to prove to you why that is the entirely wrong starting point, especially for anyone who is, you know, building a team or a business or like a finance function for the next 10 years.
I mean, it really is a massive distraction. If you're only looking at headcount reduction or a labor substitution, you are completely missing this structural earthquake happening right underneath your feet.
And that is our mission today. We're taking a deep dive into how to successfully integrate AI agents into the workforce, specifically looking at the finance function.
Right, but we aren't doing another breakdown of the latest language model.
No, definitely not. We are focusing entirely on the humans required to govern these systems. Because the harsh reality is, deploying intelligent agents without first investing in human governance capability isn't automation at all.
No, it's really not.
Our sources today, we've got an amazing article titled Building the Team That Governs the Machines, and a companion blog post called Your Future Finance Team Has AI Agents in It. Both are essentially screaming this same warning.
They are, and they use this phrase risk accumulation at machine speed, which really captures the core danger organizations are facing right now.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I hear risk accumulation at machine speed, and that sounds terrifying.
Well, it should be. We use the word intelligent to describe these agents, but we really have to decouple that from human common sense.
Right.
These agents are basically software applications. They're applying defined logic continuously and at like an unprecedented scale.
I have to challenge this risk accumulation idea right out of the gate, though.
Yeah.
I mean, vendors are constantly pitching self-healing AI, right?
Oh, sure, the dynamic agents.
Yeah. Dynamic agents that supposedly adapt to new data streams and just learn on the fly. Are we just being overly pessimistic here? Aren't these systems designed to catch their own errors?
That's a fair question. It really is. But self-healing usually applies to system performance, like rerouting data if a server goes down.
Okay.
It does not apply to business logic or regulatory environments. Agents execute exactly what they are parameterized to execute.
So they don't pivot if the real world changes.
Exactly. They do not watch the financial news. They don't instinctively know that the geopolitical landscape just shifted overnight. And they definitely don't pause to ask if a new tax law invalidates their previous instructions.
Yeah, they just keep going.
They just keep executing. And when they execute flawed logic or even good logic in a changed environment, that speed and scale becomes a massive liability.
It's like handing a teenager the keys to a Ferrari, but completely removing the steering wheel and the brakes.
Yeah, or honestly, the analogy I prefer is that it's less like a runaway car and more like a hyper-efficient mail sorting machine.
Ooh, I like that. How so?
Well, imagine you quietly change the zip code system, right? And you don't explicitly tell the machine. It doesn't break down.
Right. It doesn't throw sparks or sound an alarm.
Exactly. It just cheerfully missorts 10,000 letters an hour in perfect working order. It's completely oblivious to the chaos it's creating.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
And that dynamic is laid out brilliantly in today's stack of sources.
Yeah, they highlight some really specific scenarios where this mail sorting machine dynamic creates absolute havoc in a finance department.
Like the compliance agent example.
Right, yes. Take a compliance agent. Let's say it processes thousands of cross-border transactions based on a specific tax rule.
Okay.
And then the regulatory body updates that rule on a Tuesday. The agent doesn't know.
Because no one explicitly updated his parameter.
Exactly. So by Wednesday, it has submitted thousands of incorrect declarations to regulators at lightning speed. It's generating massive compliance violations.
Just generating future headlines about AI failures, basically. And because the system is supposedly automated, the human oversight mechanisms usually fail to catch it in time.
Yeah, because we rely on dashboards. We just look at a screen and assume green means good.
Which gets into the psychology of automation bias, right? And alert fatigue.
It does. The sources point out a reconciliation agent designed to match up accounts. If the matching logic is misconfigured even slightly by the person setting the parameters, that agent leaves material discrepancies undetected.
It just stamps millions of dollars of mismatches as approved.
Yes, and the humans looking at the dashboard, they see a 99% clearance rate and assume everything is totally fine, We are just wired to trust the machine's confidence.
Man, if you don't know what parameters your automated tools are using, you aren't transforming your business, you're just begging for an audit.
That's the reality. But the sources argue there is a solution.
Yes, they rely on three specific pillars of agent governance. And I was reading through the first pillar, which is understanding the agent's logic. And honestly, it relieved me that they stressed you don't actually need to know how to code.
You really don't.
But I mean, how deep does that conceptual clarity actually need to go for a non-technical manager?
Well, it has to go deep enough that you understand the boundaries of the system. You don't need to write Python, but you must know exactly what data sources the agent consumes.
Okay, so you need to know what it's eating, basically.
Right. And you need to know the decision trees it's programmed to navigate, and critically, its escalation parameters.
Meaning, when does it stop and ask for help?
Exactly. You have to know the precise criteria that causes the agent to stop and say, I need a human. If you don't know the boundaries of its autonomy, you cannot govern it.
Right, which leads perfectly into the second pillar, evaluating outputs statistically. And this is a massive shift, isn't it?
Huge shift, because you can't just check every transaction anymore.
Right, if humans are no longer doing the manual grading, but rather monitoring the statistical health of the system, that fundamentally breaks the traditional workflow.
It does, because these agents are processing thousands of items an hour. If you review even a fraction of those manually, you've completely erased the efficiency gains of the automation.
So you're basically back to square one.
Exactly. So the governance capability shifts to statistical evaluation. A professional has to look at the system and understand what correct behavior looks like in aggregate.
They are looking for degradation patterns.
Yes.
So give me an idea of what a degradation pattern actually looks like on a random Tuesday afternoon. How does a human spot that?
Okay, let's say your agent normally flags about 2% of incoming invoices for human review due to missing data.
Okay, so 2% is the baseline.
Right. That's the statistical baseline. Then suddenly, over a 3-day period, it starts flagging 8%.
Oh, wow. But the system hasn't crashed.
Nope. It isn't generating error codes. It's totally healthy from an IT perspective. But that statistical drift is the signal.
It's telling you something changed in the environment.
Exactly. A human governing that agent recognizes the drift and investigates. And they discover that a major vendor slightly changed their invoice formatting.
And the agent's logic can no longer find the purchase order number.
Exactly.
So it's about spotting the signal in the noise.
Yeah.
Which leads directly to the third pillar, directing improvements.
Right, because once you spot that the vendor changed the format, you have to diagnose the root cause and specify the update.
Translating the business problem into a logic specification.
You have to be able to say, the agent needs its parameter updated to scan field B instead of field A for this specific vendor ID, and then pass that exact requirement to the technical team.
What's fascinating here is that the technology isn't actually the bottleneck, is it?
No, not at all. The bottleneck is organizational design. It's finding humans with the conceptual clarity to perform these 3 pillars of governance.
So if humans are suddenly acting as, like, statistical health monitors and logic directors, who on a current finance team is qualified to do that?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, because the sources lay out 4 entirely new roles that will make up the team of the future, and this represents a total paradigm shift.
It's a completely different way to structure a department.
Let's break these down, starting with what they call the rarest role, the agent architect.
Yeah, the agent architect is basically the foundation of the new model. This is the person designing the entire ecosystem.
So they're looking at the sprawling mess of a finance department.
And deciding which specific processes are rigid enough for an agent, what decision logic needs to be built, and how those agents will interact with legacy enterprise systems.
And the reason the text highlights this as the rarest role is because it requires a completely unique hybrid of skills.
It's incredibly hard to find.
Yeah, you need deep financial, regulatory, and tax domain expertise overlapping with a systems-level understanding of how AI agents are engineered.
Right. Usually you have a brilliant controller who knows international tax law, but their eyes just glaze over at API integrations.
Or you have a brilliant data engineer who couldn't explain transfer pricing if their life depended on it.
Exactly. Finding both of those in one brain is incredibly difficult.
And that hybrid requirement is why the second role, the agent performance manager, has to step in as a completely different type of failsafe.
Yes. If the architect builds the engine, the performance manager is the one watching the telemetry.
This is the quality assurance function. They're dedicated to mitigating that alert fatigue we discussed earlier.
They are the ones tracking the statistical degradation. They monitor the dashboards against established quality standards.
So they are the ones actually noticing the invoice flag rate jumping from 2% to 8%.
Exactly. They ensure the high-volume automated processes remain healthy over time.
Okay, the third role brings up a fascinating paradox in all of this. The exception intelligence specialist.
This is where the human job completely transforms.
Wait, so if the AI is filtering out all the easy, routine work, the thousands of straightforward transactions, doesn't that mean everything hitting the human desk is exclusively the nightmare tier?
Yes.
So does the human's day-to-day job actually get exponentially harder?
It gets significantly more intense, absolutely.
Mm.
The agents act as this relentless filter. Anything that fits neatly into a defined parameter is handled silently.
So the easy stuff is just gone.
Gone. What gets escalated to the exception intelligence specialist are the deeply ambiguous intercompany disputes, the regulatory gray areas with no precedent.
Oh, man. The data anomalies that require genuine human investigation.
It is the worst of the worst all day long.
That sounds exhausting.
It's pure, complex problem solving. This specialist becomes the highest skill, highest judgment member of the team.
Because they have to be.
Right. We are freeing up their capacity from routine data entry, specifically so they have the cognitive bandwidth to tackle these incredibly dense puzzles.
I really love that framing. The technology doesn't make the human's job easier. It elevates the human's job to pure judgment.
That's a great way to put it.
And then we have the fourth role, the compliance intelligence officer. The sources call this a buffer between the outside world and the internal system.
Yeah, but reading through their actual responsibilities, they're really more like a legal to logic translator.
I like that, a legal to logic translator.
That is a highly accurate way to describe them. They are constantly monitoring external tax authorities, regulatory bodies, and global compliance shifts.
And when a new mandate drops.
They don't just write a memo to the department. They actually have to translate that new legal requirement into a technical logic specification.
So they update the agent's parameters.
Exactly. They have to fluently speak both bureaucratic tax code and machine logic.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You look at these four roles, the architect, the performance manager, the exceptions specialist, the compliance officer, and you realize something pretty quickly.
That they don't exist yet.
Right. These do not currently exist in most organizations in any coherent form.
No, we have fragments of these duties scattered across different titles, but we have a massive gap when it comes to dedicated governance.
Which brings us to the operational reality. You cannot just purchase this governance team off the shelf from a software vendor.
You really can't. You can buy the AI, but you can't buy the governance.
Right. We have this theoretical dream team, but you can't just flip a switch to get there.
No, and that's why the sources outline an agent readiness assessment that organizations must undergo before deploying even a single agent.
And it covers four dimensions, right? The first one being process clarity.
Yes. And this sounds simple, but it is a massive hurdle.
Because of tacit knowledge.
Exactly. If your current human processes rely on tacit knowledge, the things your senior accountant just knows to do instinctively but has never actually written down, an agent cannot replicate it.
Agents need explicit, mathematically specified logic. You can't automate a gut feeling.
You really can't. And honestly, that tacit knowledge is usually hiding terrible process design anyway.
Oh, for sure.
Which leads into the second dimension of the assessment, data quality. The sources emphasize three specific technical prerequisites here.
Right, a canonical data model, a data orchestration layer, and a clean core ERP.
Yes.
The text gets pretty heavy there. Let's walk through what actually happens when an organization ignores those and tries to deploy an agent anyway.
Okay, let's say a company wants an agent to reconcile accounts across different regional offices, but they don't have a canonical data model.
What does that chaos look like?
Well, a canonical data model essentially means your entire enterprise agrees on a standard language and format for your data.
So everyone calls the same thing by the same name.
Exactly. If you don't have one, Department A might label a client as vendor, while Department B labels the exact same client as supplier num.
Okay, and a human intuitively knows those are the same thing.
Right, but the AI agent treats them as completely distinct entities. It doesn't throw a systemic error.
It just quietly fails.
It just quietly fails to reconcile millions of dollars across those departments, assuming they're unmatched records.
Wow. And then layer on the data orchestration layer. If the ERP, the enterprise software, is the brain, The orchestration layer is the nervous system moving the data around.
That's a great analogy.
If that nervous system drops a packet because an API timed out, the AI agent is going to make a high-speed decision based on phantom pains.
Yes. It might assume an account balance is 0 because the data packet was delayed by 2 seconds.
And then it triggers an automated cash transfer that creates a massive liquidity crisis.
That is the ultimate consequence of poor data architecture. If the agent is reading garbage data, it executes garbage decisions at machine speed.
You have to fix the data infrastructure before you introduce the autonomous agent,
You have to.
which feeds right into the third dimension of readiness, governance infrastructure.
The sources are adamant about this. You must build the safety nets before you start the Trapeze Act.
Audit logging, performance monitoring systems, and clear escalation paths.
Yes. All of it must be completely built, tested, and operational before day 1 of deployment. You cannot build the governance infrastructure reactively while live agents are already touching your financial data.
That's just a recipe for disaster. And the final dimension brings us back to the humans. Human capability. Does your current workforce actually understand how these agents fail?
Do they possess the conceptual clarity to govern them?
Right. And this leads to a crucial realization about sourcing this talent. You don't just go out to LinkedIn, post a job listing for a legal to logic translator or a exception intelligence specialist.
No, and expect to hire someone who natively understands your specific business quirks. It's impossible.
So where do you get them?
The most valuable raw material for this future team is the team you already have.
Oh, interesting.
You have to develop your existing tax specialists, your controllers, your treasury professionals.
Because they already possess the deep institutional domain expertise.
Exactly. They know where the bodies are buried in your historical data. What they lack and what you must train them on is the analytical framework.
You have to teach them how to design systems and monitor statistics rather than just executing manual processes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, transitioning to an agent-driven finance function is a multi-year organizational investment. It is not a quick software procurement.
You have to teach them to be the architect, not just the bricklayer.
Absolutely. Waiting for the technology to go live to figure out who is going to govern it is a guaranteed path to failure. The human layer must be constructed in parallel with the technology layer.
So what does this all mean for you? If you are a leader, a manager, or just a professional trying to navigate this massive shift, the most important conversation you can have right now isn't about which AI vendor to pick.
No, it's really not.
It isn't about the parameters of the latest large language model. It is about looking at your current team and asking the hard questions.
Who has the technical curiosity and the domain knowledge to become our agent architect?
Right. Who has the pure, complex judgment required to be our exception intelligence specialist?
Those are the questions that matter.
The sources leave us with one incredibly powerful quote that I think summarizes the entire philosophy of this transition perfectly. Build the humans first. The agents will follow, and they will be better for it.
It is a profound shift in perspective, but, we've spent this whole deep dive talking about how humans must govern agents and how that governance requires deep foundational domain expertise.
Yeah.
This raises an important question, one that isn't easily answered by any of the current literature. As these agents get more sophisticated and they take over all the routine everyday tasks, how do the next generation of junior professionals ever gain the foundational expertise required to become those high-level exception intelligence specialists in the first place?
Oh, wow.
Historically, we learned the complex nuances of finance by grinding through the routine work. If the machines do all the learning on the easy stuff, how do the human juniors learn how to govern the machines when things get hard?
That is a paradox that is going to keep me up at night. If we remove the training wheels and hand them straight to the AI, how does the next generation ever learn to ride?
It's a structural challenge we are all going to have to figure out together.
We really are. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Tomorrow, when you log on to your next meeting or look at your department's org chart, I guarantee you are going to look at your team and the true cost of those AI tools very differently. We'll catch you next time.